I'm Teisha Bader with the JBS News Update for Tuesday, July the 28th, 2015. Israeli border police clashed with Jewish settlers in the West Bank this morning. The police went into Beit El in the early hours of this morning to evacuate activists who were camped out in 24 partially built housing units that are set to be demolished later this week because they were built illegally. 50 demonstrators were reportedly detained by police and more clashes were reported this afternoon. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the government is against the demolition of the buildings. He said, "We are working to support the settlement enterprise and are doing so in compliance with the law." Israel's High Court of Justice ruled that the buildings must be demolished by Thursday. And protesters also gathered this morning in the ruins of the Jewish settlement of Sanur in the West Bank that was evacuated 10 years ago during the Gaza disengagement. The IDF did not give permission for the protesters to be there and gave them until this afternoon to leave the premises or they will be evacuated. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, together with U.S. Secretary of the Treasury Jack Lew and U.S. Energy Secretary Ernest Moniz, testified today before the House Foreign Affairs Committee on the nuclear agreement with Iran. The Jerusalem Post reports that Kerry told the committee that he understands Israel's concerns about Iran, but that the deal makes Israel and the Middle East safer. Regarding Iran's sponsorship of terror, Kerry said the U.S. would continue to, quote, push back against Iran's other activities, and added that the current level of security cooperation between the U.S. and Israel is unprecedented. Israeli and Palestinian peace negotiators reportedly met in Jordan last week in an effort to try to restart peace talks. According to Israeli media, Silvan Shalom and Saeb Erekat were said to have met in Amman on Thursday in order to break the ice. Ynet reported that the meeting was approved by Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu and by Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas. Over 200 Jews from France arrived this morning in Israel on a special Aliyah flight organized by the Jewish Agency for Israel and Israel's Ministry of Aliyah and Immigrant Absorption. Data shows that over 4,200 immigrants from France have arrived in Israel so far this year, an 11% increase compared from the same period last year. Chairman of the executive of the Jewish Agency, Natan Sharansky, remarked on the wave of Aliyah from European countries, which he said not only shows how Europe is, quote, becoming an uncomfortable place for Jews, but even more importantly, Sharansky said the extent to which Israel is becoming a magnet for Jews interested in a meaningful Jewish life, in freedom, personal security, and a sense of belonging to a country that is integral to the future of the Jewish people. International lawyer, academic, writer, and Holocaust survivor Samuel Pisar died yesterday. Born in Białystok, Poland, Pisar survived 6 different concentration camps as a child, including Majdanek, Auschwitz, and Dachau. His parents and sisters were murdered by the Nazis. Pisar later wrote about his ordeal in the memoir of Blood and Hope. After the war, Pisar ultimately made his way to the U.S. and earned a doctorate in law from Harvard. He later served as a trade advisor to President John F. Kennedy. He also founded Yad Vashem France and was a trustee of the Brookings Institution in Washington. Pisar died yesterday in New York at the age of 86. Over 2,000 Jewish athletes have come to Berlin to compete in the European Maccabi Games. The Games are being held in Germany for the first time at the stadium built by the Nazis for the 1936 Olympics. Organizers held a Holocaust memorial service ahead of the opening ceremony today. German President Joachim Gauck addressed the opening ceremony, as did World Jewish Congress President Ronald Lauder, who said the fact that the Games were being held in the Nazi-built stadium represents a, quote, triumph of good over evil. Lauder said, "For those who say this is not the right place to hold these games, I say to the contrary, this is exactly where these games should be held." Lauder said the best way to overcome a terrible event is to go back to where it happened, to show yourself that you can return, and to prove to everyone that you can endure and move on. JBS broadcast today's opening ceremony live An encore presentation will air tomorrow night, Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. And taking a look now at our programming for tonight, Tuesday, July the 28th, at 7:35, author of The Torah of Reconciliation, Rabbi Sheldon Lewis, talks to members of Temple Shalom and Greenwich Christ Church in a lecture called Chosenness Reconsidered. At 8 o'clock, Dr. Micah Goodman of the Hartman Institute in Jerusalem talks about his new book, Maimonides, and the book that changed Judaism, with Union for Reform Judaism President Rabbi Rick Jacobs and Park Avenue Synagogue's Rabbi Elliot Cosgrove in a Jewish Week event from Park Avenue Synagogue. Then at 9, Mark Golub sits down with Esh HaTorah Rabbi Ken Spiro on L'chaim, and at 10 o'clock, a replay of Sunday's new JBS program, live at 5 from the Voice of Israel studios in Jerusalem. And that's the JBS News Update for Tuesday, July the 28th, 2015. I'm Teisha Bader.